Video games are a lot of things. They're a chance to explore new worlds. They're a story we get to have a direct impact in. They're a tool that can teach difficult concepts, a means to demonstrate one's abilities. And if you're not careful, you might just make a couple friends. Gaming has been a social activity even before the advent of video games. Recreational games like checkers, rummy, mahjong, and the aptly and wonderfully named cornhole give us the opportunity to bond with people who share at least one common interest. During the advent of computer and arcade gaming, we'd share tips and trivia, maybe secrets or rumors, about our favorite arcade games. It's how we learned about the Warp Zone in Super Mario Bros. Sure, at least one person had to do the work to get there. But then that guy tells their friends, and they tell their friends, and now 35 years later, this hidden area, these sorts of strange locales and hidden techniques, are part of our popular culture. Of course, the internet changed everything. It always changes everything. Now we can share these moments not just with our friends and family, but with the world. I don't need to call Steve to tell him about this weird guy in a blue suit I saw hanging around in Half-Life. I can simply take a screenshot and post it on a forum, or send it in an email. But this isn't good enough, is it? When I say games as a social space, we're not talking emailing secrets, are we? No. We're talking this. Online gaming meant we could congregate digitally now, and online games could be repurposed into social spaces. Disable the round timer, turn on respawns, maybe get a weird custom map to hang around in, and what was once an intense battle of wit and reflex is a place where I can conga with a bunch of gaudily dressed gravel men. Valve Software's Team Fortress 2 was the first online game I ever played, and on a laptop that made the game look like this, I had to stick to smaller maps, and Trade Plaza was among the smallest. With its weird indoor planters and the F-Zero track just outside, Trade Plaza feels like a strange little corner of a failing, dilapidated mall. Its artifice was scarce, scattered around inside a large brutalist space that just begged for some TLC. This wasn't anything special, but it was home. For people who don't understand, it looks like a waste of time. What's the goal, you might wonder? Where is the objective? Who wins? And the answer is, there is no goal, there is no objective, and nobody wins, but everybody wins. You might be here to trade in Team Fortress's case, but usually these were just spaces to mess around. Shoot the breeze over voice chat or text, shoot the other people, go on, they're not going to take it personally. Maybe someone's got a really cool hat or a taunt and you all crowd around to comment on it. Maybe somebody just bought the conga and they want to conga with everybody. Maybe this map's got some extra meat to its bones, but you'll never know until you try. These servers were originally designated as no-nonsense places to trade the in-game virtual items, but over time the niche for social spaces in Team Fortress 2 exploded, taking its price tag with it. With the game being entirely free to play after the Uber update and not particularly demanding specs-wise with a fandom larger than its player count, this immediately became the prime candidate for a digital hangout spot. That didn't stop some idiots from spending $20 on the game 3 weeks before it went free to play. Who would do such a thing? Of course, Team Fortress wasn't the only social game at the time, but looking at the games that were will help single out the recurring threads holding these games together. Garry's Mod had been a smash success in the years following its launch, with the game regularly selling for $2.50 on Steam during sales. Minecraft had launched out of beta in November of 2011, with 4 million units sold on PC alone at that point, and its monumental mobile and console ports were on the horizon. While not as popular as Team Fortress's social scene, Counter-Strike was still a hangout spot in the same friend circles. And if you and 3 friends wanted to hang out, Left 4 Dead 2 had just started porting over Left 4 Dead 1 maps, doubling the amount of content in that game. So, a good social space is 1. Accessible. Either free to play, cheap enough it's easy to fetch, or just all over the place. 2. It needs to have variety, whether that's a bunch of campaigns, an active mod community, or some horrid combination of the two. These games needed to have different events to experience or locales to wander about. 3rd, baby, they gotta be playable on lots of different machines. Team Fortress and Garry's Mod aren't resource hogs, unless you have a bunch of workshop content in Garry's Mod, at which point, I'm sorry. And Minecraft, while stout, was such a phenomenon that it didn't matter if most people were playing 1.2 at like 25 frames a second with 8 chunks rendered at a time. There was loads to do and see regardless. Of course, it's not just casual mess around stuff that makes for good social spaces. There are lots of ways to incorporate this and this together. Maybe everyone meets in one server, maybe one person plays while everyone else just hangs out chatting with each other about it. Maybe you play a few proper rounds and then leave. Maybe you just float between servers without any regard for the match at hand. Team Fortress 2 at this point in time had a button called Quick Play. You picked what game mode you wanted to play, hit go, and then it'd drop you into the server. You then invite all your friends into that server, and when you were done, someone drops out and finds something new via Quick Play. It was simple, it was elegant, and most of all, it was just good. The game had this quality of freeform drop-in, drop-out to it that kept the stakes on servers relatively low. Besides, there was no reward for winning, no penalty for losing. Well, except for... Oh my god!
Oh man, you got crits.
But this was the golden era of games as a social space. There was an ease of access between servers. The games were approachable and accessible. There weren't any proper barriers to it all. Players weren't missing out by playing casually versus competitively. There were no rewards that people scouring server browsers would miss out on versus people who stuck to round after round in quick play queues. And with all that said, this was online gaming in its rawest, most perfect form, the platonic ideal of an online game. But then something happened. Now, I don't want to make it look like I'm blaming one game. Truth be told, there are a lot of factors at play. But when Team Fortress 2 was forced to compete against Overwatch, this kind of marked the beginning of the end for things. Overwatch was born into esports spectacle. Activision Blizzard paid big money to keep the game in the spotlight in its early days, offering up invitationals and esports opportunities, making a game that was as esports friendly as possible. Not really friendly for the viewer, this game is a chaotic mess, go on, tell me what's going on, but rather for the player. There was no upper level meta or game engine trickery to perform well in this game. Players simply needed to press the right buttons in the right order at the right time to do well. And to usher forth a new generation of esports players, the game was tailor-made to induct people into this illustrious world. You had a player rank, and to level it up, you simply needed to play matches. If you win, that's recorded in your public records, your win-loss ratio is adjusted, and you were awarded a coveted first win of the day bonus of 1500 experience, which made leveling up faster, which let you unlock more of the game's loot boxes to earn seasonal cosmetic items. If you wanted to collect them all, you either needed to spend a lot of money, there was no guarantee that even the $100 50 crate deal would net you everything, or you had to play the game. A lot. And if you did not complete a full round, you were awarded 0 experience and could potentially be dropped into a lower priority queue or outright banned for a short amount of time. If you completed a match, you had to pick out your next match. There was no free-flowing servers. In fact, there was no server browser until much later. You got what the game wanted you to have, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And on top of that, there weren't many modes. Quick Play, a few arcade modes that were cycled out weekly, and competitive, where you would receive a seasonal rank ranging from bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, master, or grandmaster. That would affect the people you were paired up with in competitive modes. Players indoctrinated into the competitive lifestyle often fought with one another over what rank they feel they ought to be, which led to the lower ranks containing some of the primest examples of, "Oh man, behavior like that in online games is going to lead to some bad places in the future." With silver ranks feeling like they belonged in platinum and were above the other 11 players, gold players clawing at each other to make it into diamond, and everyone else kind of just being normal or Hanjo. If you wanted to advance in these ranks, you needed to cooperate as a team. That means discussing each player's strengths, who they're best with, and coordinating a battle plan based on the map type and objective with these strengths in mind, trying to cover for any counter. Are you kidding? Just stick to the meta and out-meta the other team. It's so easy. Each season brought with it balance patches, which in turn meant the competitive players needed to study the meta inside and out, pick the characters who were actually fun to play, and then harass and belittle everyone else who even started thinking about the prospects of playing as Mei into playing those other characters that are part of the meta. And with 5 other strangers and the bulk of players sitting somewhere between bitterly clawing at the next higher tier and Hanjo, it was hard to actually cooperate as a team. If only. You had friends you could reliably guilt trip into playing exclusively Mercy for the sake of your comp record. That's it. Those casual players, if they're not going to help your MMR, they might as well be dead weight to you, you know? Competitive offers more experience, and if they want more loot boxes, they should tag along with you and keep up with your MMR ranking, which means put down those toys and pick up the healing staff. This is for your own good. Overwatch seemed pretty perfectly designed to slowly turn casual players over to the competitive side to grind quicker, which meant getting involved with the metas, which meant that players originally looking to put Mei in her pajamas were now potentially on their way to becoming Red Bull's next top player, swimming in sponsorships for baby car seat-ass gaming chairs, over-engineered, awful-tasting energy drinks, and anything with RGB lights slapped inside of it. And hey, because you have all these sponsorship deals now, and so much time burnt into the game, you might as well show Activision Blizzard some love and buy some loot boxes. Now, this isn't to dismiss Overwatch, its fans, or even esports in general, though this is to dismiss those gaming chairs. When did this become hotter than this? But this cycle is a far cry from the drop-in, drop-out that made games like Team Fortress 2 so engaging to casual audiences. TF2 has a way higher skill ceiling, but it has a way lower skill floor, which makes the game a hit with everyone from top-level professional players who can roll out in record times, to those schmucks who just love to blast anime music at you and buy keys with entire lifetimes worth of metal. Team Fortress 2 has had tons of competition in its past, the likes of EA's Battlefield Heroes, that mismanaged gun crafting game Loadout, the Bitcoin miner Monday Night Combat, even some of Valve's own titles like Counter-Strike or Dota. But had never had competition like Overwatch before. This game had mass appeal with its colorful, cutesy characters and sci-fi light cyberpunk aesthetic. It had an expensive marketing campaign with regular TV ads, banners and posters, heaps of merchandise, cereal, and the fullest intent of obliterating all competition. Valve paid the game no mind during its lead up to launch, but just 2 months after Overwatch rocked the FPS scene, Valve retaliated with the Meet Your Match update. On the surface, casual mode is just quick play, but better. You can filter out specific maps if desired. You could easily group up a party of 6 friends, and you are always guaranteed to be connected to a game in the setup phase. No more joining a game in its dying seconds for you. But with that said, you were forced into servers with SV Pure 1 enabled, which shut down any custom files you had unless they were custom hit sounds or HUDs. Had a cool particle effect replacer? Maybe a custom skin? Not anymore. Additionally, Quick Play let you enable certain toggles to say find servers with crits disabled, or an increased player count. You could even try to just find community servers with all sorts of crazy rules, maps, and people. I think what casual mode took away from Quick Play was its sense of fluid community. You weren't dropping in on servers like partygoers floating around in different rooms to hang out with people, shoot the breeze, maybe pet the dog for a few minutes to mentally and socially recharge. You were dropping into a game with the sole intent of fighting the people on the other team. Once brothers forged in the fires of social community, now warriors, sparring each other endlessly for the same few gravel pits back and forth, until you parted ways again at the end of the match. Brought back to the menu to find a new match and move on all over again. Hey Jay, I hear you ask. This is like the 3rd time you've done a video about TF2's supposed collapse. Just like how in 2017, the game rebounded quite well, it's 2021 and it's still got an active player base. A pretty substantial one at that. It's usually in Steam's top 10, if not top 5. Clearly, it's not going anywhere serious. Clearly, you're just wrong. But that's where the heart of this video shows itself. See, this isn't just a talk about Team Fortress 2, and it's not a discussion on Overwatch. These behaviors are being spotted throughout the games industry as a whole. So let's cast aside our crutches, put the hats away, and pick up... What the fuck are these? I know one of these. Can we play the one I know? There we are. So one of the things we saw in 2015 and 2016 in the games scene is the idea of cosmetic rewards being used like carrots on strings to pull players towards playing more of a game than they normally would. In that time, we would use the loot box to incentivize reckless work and leisure balances, but those fell out of favor after a couple games got in a tiny bit of trouble breaking national gambling laws. So now most games use a battle pass or premium currency to provide those same bonuses without making Switzerland blow a fucking gasket. Doom Eternal is a single-player game. A pretty good one at that, but it's a single-player game. There is a multiplayer mode, a Slayer vs. Demon arena fighter called Battle Mode, but Steam achievement stats seem to imply that very few people actually play Battle Mode. There's a planned Invasion mode where fallen players can wreak havoc in another player's session by stomping around as the demon that killed them, but this is, once again, just planned, and at the time of writing is not available. There are Empowered Demons, which are enemies that killed you, getting to go on a hot streak and appear in your friends' sessions, but that's not actually multiplayer. So why does this game have like 30 battle passes? The player earns cosmetic rewards as they play, part of little themed collections like an Elvis-themed costume for the Mancubus, or turning the Archvile into a hipster. These are unlocked by earning EXP by playing the campaign or battle mode, so they're unlocked by playing the campaign. These collections are also very expansive, usually boasting a minimum of 10 levels to blitz through for bonus costumes and menu props. And if you miss a collection, it's gone for good. I will never get to know the joys and pleasure of a hipster Archvile. The Mancubus will never remind me of my similarities to Canis Familiaris, and the Doomslayer will never sport his signature beer gut, white t-shirt, and mullet at me ever again. But that brings us to the other games. The Battle Pass is the de facto game progression tool in most of our contemporaries, and most of these games only offer you experience for completed levels or matches. I could just say matches, but our old friend Doom Eternal has made this harder than it needs to be by incorporating Battle Passes into a single-player experience. Counter-Strike actually recently went the way of the Battle Pass, with unlockable characters, skins, and other cosmetic garbage for a game that hasn't fundamentally changed much since the year 2000. Sure, it may have a woefully scant Battle Royale mode, and it might look nicer. You might not be able to put on a performance of the anti-war protest piece Velvet Strike in CSGO anymore, after changing the spray system to require prefab pieces to be stitched together versus just importing a JPEG, but you still buy guns to kill enemies and either rescue hostages or plant or defuse bombs. And then you earn more money to buy better guns until you can't do that anymore. Sure, the Valve games still have community spaces of a sort. There is a server browser loaded with alternative game modes and other additions. You can surf, you can get up to some trouble in Terrorist Town. If VR's your thing and you have the capital to invest in that most premium of goods, empty space, you can even play many of these community modes in the Counter-Strike-like Pavlov VR. But for each Team Fortress 2 and Counter-Strike, there's a Rainbow Six Siege, a Rocket League, and a Titanfall 2. These games have no community servers, everything's handled via matchmaking. There are no ad hoc connections, there are no communal online spaces. There is only bloodshed and violence. And sick card tricks. In the games that do offer community servers, though, rarely do you ever receive experience points towards bonuses for playing on them. Sure, TF2's casual metal might only be a menu prop you can click on to spin, but what about our other games? No experience gain in an Overwatch community server means no loot boxes, which means that elusive ability to go jammy mode and slaughter our friends after just waking up from a 9-year botched cryosleep is taken from us. And the only way to expedite the process is to play competitively, or to pay competitively. This is where I would lament the death of the communal game space, where I would show empty Team Fortress servers I picked out for being empty, while I play Mind and Soul and lament that a part of our culture of games at large has been destroyed, lost to the ether, digital social spaces stripped of their value, buried deep into the cupboards of history, and left to waste away. This would be where I would lament that the future is always moving, and it takes casualties, and how the mobile scene and esports have destroyed what were the places I fancied most online when I started playing online games in 2011. This would be where I try to find the spaces that we left behind, where I would give a big, important speech about a loss of individuality in games by waving a pyro around in an empty Skyle server. Fade the video to black over a span of 10 to 20 seconds, leaving you with an impactful scene that would make you subconsciously agree with my stance even if you didn't, and then move on. I would move on to discuss something else the gaming youth just don't understand, get myself dug in too deep over a game I'm giving too much thought, and you would carry on, maybe forgetting all about that weird video you saw in which someone who didn't like Titanfall 2's campaign blamed Overwatch for killing Team Fortress. The nuance of their argument irrelevant. Their channel 2, a decaying husk. Except, that's not quite the story here. Community Team Fortress servers, Overwatch custom games, even Counter-Strike servers still exist, and they're still quite numerous. There are often short queues of players trying to enter a bustling 32-player trade server, and there are a large number of other factors I haven't even touched on. First of all, this is really the biggest change since 2011, but live streaming has become so much more accessible. 2012 saw the first stable release of Open Broadcaster Software, or OBS, and in 2014 the first version of OBS Studio, the current most fully featured version, was made public. Prior to this, streaming and recording software took the form of tools like XSplit, which were not free or open source. FFsplit was the closest thing to a free competitor, and that had its fair share of issues and idiosyncrasies. Trust me, I know. But live streams turned games, even single-player games, speedruns, and other creative endeavors into communal activities. Starting a stream became as easy as hitting a button. Within minutes, a crowd could easily find a stream of most any game, and hang out with the games and the streamers, fans and friends. Alongside this, Discord overtook Skype and TeamSpeak as the de facto chat app among teens and young adults nearly around the same time, and became such a widespread program that it had to shed its cringe-worthy gamer sheen, with welcome messages and loading screens no longer being ham-fisted Undertale jokes, and instead just welcome messages and loading screens. And the games themselves are no slouch either. The 8th generation saw a continuing rise of the 7th generation indie boom, with the likes of Super Meat Boy, Braid, and Minecraft giving way to more niche experiences like The Beginner's Guide, Screenchy, and Dusk. With the wide variety of games, there's pretty much something out there for everyone to try and enjoy, and if there isn't, getting started is easier now than it has ever been before. Game Maker is cheap, Unity and Unreal are free. Get out there. Garry's Mod is still the perennial online sandbox, with 20,000 concurrent players at nearly any given time, and a platform designed to be used for a wide variety of activities. Gary Newman's follow-up title, Rust, still bears many similarities to the mod, a more social explorative approach to the then-in-survival crafting titles, but they are currently working on a proper follow-up, Sandbox, which will no doubt follow very closely in Garry's Mod's footsteps. In our digital-first age, where a handshake can spell certain doom, tabletop games are a threatened breed. Not endangered, not dying, but where can I play the Settlers of Catan with friends, if I'm not with friends? Tabletop Simulator was originally designed as essentially a weird Unity engine toy in which you could play Dungeons & Dragons and chess, but its workshop and DLC page are loaded with other tabletop games, official or otherwise. The tools have gotten easier to use over the years, the ambiance is very pleasant, and the variety of games on offer can be a great way to experience classic titles with friends over miles and miles. A number of similar products, like Fantasy Grounds, are also on Steam and provide similar digital tabletop experiences, though maybe just the games that require owning all these dice. Games as a service may inconvenience the player at most opportunities, but everyone's inconvenienced together, which builds fire-forged bonds. Just ask Destiny 2 fans. They've gutted large swaths of content from that game, but there is still adventure to be had, new activities popping up around every corner, in a wide breadth of modes, competitive, cooperative, or otherwise. Ditto Warframe and Phantasy Star Online. Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Online are massive, sprawling worlds with boatloads of things to do and see, but a lot of fun can still be had in those games by just exploring the world with your friends. Getting on your bike and driving around in circles around the horse race track, nearly crashing your vehicles into one another, and buying up new outfits and engaging in very interesting and serious activities around Los Santos, or wherever Red Dead Online takes place, that one too. And that brings us to the end of an era. Not for games as a social space or even the end of the video, but in 2019, I played something, and I wanted to do more with that something. Now, it was an easy target. I picked it, and I picked at it, and that was it. I did want to do more with it, but I didn't really have the time or the energy to do that then. And a lot of time has passed since then. And I want to make good on something I promised someone long ago. Something I promised a lot of you long ago. That's right. I played the Ice Surfing Rift. It was lovely. I played both, 1 and 2. They were both fine. I didn't understand how they worked until it kind of clicked. But they're fine. They're short. And they're acceptable. Good for you. They were quite okay. Oh, I've had this bandage on my arm. I should probably go ahead and probably take that off. The scab underneath's probably healed just fine. This hyper-saturated, cartoonishly aesthetic world is technically nothing new for me. If you were one of the 2 people on the Switch or mobile versions who killed a player named Memihelp, you met me in a game back in 2019. But that was purely for academic purposes, not like now. This is research. Fortnite has a fully featured creative mode in which the entire map is open for a player and their friends to explore and build upon using the game's prefab surfaces and a number of other props, allowing for the creation of racetracks and platforming courses within the game's rudimentary set of tools. But beyond that, Fortnite is a game that allows a player to queue with friends, fight off enemies, and in this game and many others on this list, the player is not demanded to reach a level of perfection. Doom Eternal's DLC, for instance, cranks up the intensity to an extreme degree, asking players to juggle cooldowns and weapon DPSs while fighting off swarms of the game's most powerful enemies in situations the base game would not have dared to pit the player against. This is not the hallmark of a modern social game. Fortnite and its contemporaries streamline gameplay mechanics so the game can easily take a backseat to discussion and social activities if necessary. In much the same way that shoving players around with my air blast and shooting scorched shot flares into the enemy spawn was my idea of an afternoon well spent in the summer of 2012, hanging out with a few friends over Discord and helping your trio rise the ranks and earn a few loot boxes in the meantime is how people a few years younger get together socially. I mean, not anymore, really. They've moved on pretty invariably to Among Us, and I'm already also still behind on trends, as evidenced by this video. And that really could be its own discussion about chasing trends to stay relevant and be seen on the internet. How new trends can be started by just being at the right place in the right time, and then everyone has to follow along, dropping everything they were doing otherwise. They get left behind. But that's not the discussion today. Today, games as a social space are alive and well, but the form they take is entirely unlike the form they took even 5 years ago. The likes of quick play and drop in, drop out have gone the way of the dodo, and it is truly sad because it gave these games a much more homely feel. It was like dropping into a party an hour late but still being welcomed all the same, being dealt in with a hand of cards just for showing up, like everyone was waiting for you. Esports and competitive aspects have forced games into a new direction. Gameplay is much more organized and regimented, with you and all your friends in a queue. That likewise brought about new forms of social interactions in, around, and outside of games. We can all be playing different games and enjoying them together without seeing our screens. We can experience new things together with a massive audience. We can chat about our favorite games with a community of people all trying new things. And we can even turn these creative outlets into social ones all the same. I may not quite understand the modern game climate, but I understand that this is home to a whole generation of players the way Trade Plaza was home for me. And these spaces keep the discussion of games flowing, and in the future our virtual social spaces may look different, but they'll still be there to welcome us with open arms. Technology moves forwards. And when you're defensive about something you love, it can be easy to think that that's scary. But truthfully, it's wonderful. It's truly wonderful. The spaces aren't dissolving, they're simply changing or taking on new forms. And those new forms are wonderful. Speaking of, I actually want to give VR chat a try. Luckily I've plugged this bad boy in, so if you need me, I'll be in VR. Oh no. Oh, that titties. So, with this video marks the 10th anniversary of the channel. It actually started in 2011, not 2010. Oops. But that's fine. I think this is a fantastic note to mark the 10-year anniversary on. I just wanted to thank everybody, past and future, who watched any of my stuff, whether it was the Let's Plays I did in 2011 and 2012, or it was the live action stuff I recorded on my phone around that time, whether it was source code or my live streams, or any of the stuff you're watching right now. Thank you. To dedicate such a monumentous occasion, I've actually I designed a shirt. And you can buy it right now on Redbubble. You can get it on prints and stickers. And I would really hope that you would consider supporting me in that manner. I do want to do other merchandise designs, but for right now, this one's special to me. This one was important to make. And I hope that reflects in the quality of the product you get from Redbubble through me. So, thank you. And here is to more. Cheers. If you liked the last 10 years of videos and you'd like to see more, I would recommend subscribing. Patreon, social media links, and merchandise are in the description. Thank you.